Hi, my name's Paul Cresswell. Welcome to Paul's Tackle Reviews. The normal purpose of this channel is to give you reviews of tackle that's been out on the bank, tried and tested by an unbiased, unsponsored angler, and that's me. At the minute, this is part 2 of a 6-part series of videos I'm doing about pace fishing, so it's more of an instructional video, hopefully to take the mystery out of this and give you a chance to try it on what I think is a brilliant summer tactic. As I said, there's 6 parts to this. Part 1's already available on my YouTube channel. That was looking at floats, lines, hooks and elastics for this style. Today I'm looking at mixing the bait and the consistency of the bait. The next one we'll be looking at where to fish, plumbing up, using pole pots. I'm then going to show a series of on the bank films about what's a bite and what's not a bite, and I've got some really great content already and I think that'll be really interesting. I'm going to do a short video on how to stay reasonably clean. You'll see me towels out today. And then the final one, I'm going to do a short video showing me putting it all together in action. So let's look at what makes a good paste. And what you want is something that's very heavily pellet based, and you also need it super fine. This isn't the place for coarse ground baits. You want a very fine mix. And the last thing I'll say is it doesn't need to say paste on the packet. So what do I use? I use Adrenaline Megabyte ground bait, and I use the red krill, and I've also got the green version. I can't remember what it's called now, but I've also got the green version of this. This comes in a 1.4 kilo bag, so that's just a ground bait but can be used as a paste. It's a very fine texture. I think it's been double ground, so it's super fine, but it's 70% pellets in there. And then the other one I use probably earlier in the season is I like this from Bait Tech, Special G Green. Again, very fine, mixes up really well into a paste. So that one's £6.59 for 1.4 kilos, so that works out about 47 pence per 100 grams. This one I've seen is about £5.39 for a kilo, so that works out about 54 pence per 100 grams. And I have used things like the Preston 1-to-1 paste, and they do mix up really well and they are very effective, but they're £5 for half a kilo, so you're talking £1 for 100 grams. So I wouldn't use these if they weren't good, and I'd use the Preston if it was better, but I think these are just as good as the Preston, but also better value as well. I do like the red of the Adrenaline, and I think especially at this time of year, in the margins or short fishing in shallow water, it can be very churned up, and I think the red creates a dark shadow on the lake bed that fish come to, and we all know that red baits work really well even in very coloured water. What I will say is you don't have to use these, and I know people who use green swim stim. There's a lot out there, but try and not look at lots of different types. Focus in on one and then get used to it and how it works, because sometimes they work differently. If it's a red hot day, some can get quite claggy or get quite sticky, so you need to get used to whatever you're using. So how do I mix it? And I'm going to cut away now to a short video showing me mixing some of the Adrenaline Red. So this part of the video I'm looking at making the paste. So I've got my tub for my paste. I always measure when I'm making paste, and just for info, something like that will do 3 hours worth of paste if you're catching well, so you don't need an awful lot. I'll weigh this later. Unfortunately my scales have been in the sun so long that they've gone a bit funny. So got my paste and I will fill that to the brim, plus a little bit for good measure. So there we have it. I will tip that in. Now the important thing here is how much water. So I'll put water and I'll put it to about there. So hopefully you can see I've got a full of the mix and about 3/4, 80% of the volume of water. Tip that in, get the spoon, get in all the corners and mix it together. You want to make sure that all particles have touched water, so there's no dry lumpy bits. That's part of the reason I use the spoon. The other one is it just keeps things nice and tidy. And you can already see that that's starting to come together as a usable paste. Now what I will do now is I'll put the lid on that and we'll put that to one side, and then we'll come back to it using it probably in about half an hour's time. Right, here's a little short piece on how to put paste onto the hook. So where's the camera? We have my size 10 Acolyte carp hook. So I will grab a piece normally around that size, put the hook in the middle, and then shape it round, and there I would then put that in the pole cup on my top kit ready to go. So let's just do that with a softer piece. So we've got the hook, I put my fingers in first. There I've got some very sloppy paste there. Again, put the hook in the middle and then form the shape, and then put that into my pole cup ready to ship out. I think I've shown you how to do the basic preparation there, and this is the ground bait that we've now produced. This is half an hour later, and as you can see, that's quite firm, hard ground bait paste. What I would say is, if this is your first time going out with paste, I would start using that paste there. I wouldn't do anything to that, because the worst thing when you start paste fishing that'll make you want to give up is if you keep shipping out and then you don't think, or you haven't actually got a bait on when you think you've got a bait on. So I'd take a piece like that in my first time out, put your hook in the middle, mould it round. That's fairly firm paste, and then get in and start fishing. So hopefully you can see the paste's gone to the bottom there, my float sat there. It's starting to break down now already. There's little bits coming off the paste, that's quite a firm paste. You could probably lift your float up. So again, if you're trying it for the first time, this allows a little bit of error. You're not going to pull out of the paste if you don't quite get it right. You can see there, you could lift it up, you could put it down. But then I'm going to try and strike now and see if I can get through the paste, and you're through and you've pulled out the paste, so you will still catch. What I will say is there are days when a nice firm piece like that is perfect, because you might have lots of silverfish in the area and they might be causing you problems and eating your bait before the bigger fish that you're targeting are turning up. You can see it's still sat there, it's still working. As I struck, the hook pulled out, so you would still get the fish, but you can actually see bits of that in the water now, which is providing an attraction in itself. So magically some water's appeared, and you always need water on the side tray, and I'll talk about keeping clean later. But what I've got here is a fairly firm paste in my tub. But what I will tend to do is maybe put some water in one end of the tub and just work that bait a little bit. Put a little bit more, that's quite a lot. And so what I've ended up with now is I've got firm paste at one end, but I've got something much softer at this end to try on the hook. And generally speaking, if you fish a softer paste, it will break down quicker, and you can obviously pull through the hook easier, and it can be more attractive to fish as you. So now I'm going to try and put a softer, wetter piece on. The first thing I'll do is wet my hands, go to this end where it's soft and wet. You can see it's really soft and wet. I'm just managing to mold it round and keep it together. I'm going to drop it in, and you can see there it's still got to the bottom in one piece. There's still probably more bits sat in there, so I think a lot of people think, oh, my bait's come off, and most of the time your bait's still there. And if you're not sure and you're really convinced it's come off and you're getting no indications of any fish whatsoever, then I would count to 10 and then I would come back in and strike the bait off, so you're leaving something in the swim. So there, we've pulled through it. See, it didn't come very far off the bottom when I struck there, it just sat there, and that was quite a soft piece. So when I'm fishing, I might start with a firm bit, just because I want to make sure my float's sat right and I want to know I've got a bait on. And a bit like when you say fishing the method feeding, you might try 2 or 3 different baits. You might try 2 or 3 different sizes, so you might go for a little pea size, or you can go for a really big size. The 2 bits I've done there are about the kind of normal size that I would use. Or you can also then vary the consistency. So I've still got the firm stuff at that end, and I've still got the sloppy stuff at that end as well. So as I said, if you want it softer, then put your hand in first and then go for a piece, and that will add water. When you've put your hook on it, you can then put it in there before it then goes in and it floats down and it's sat there waiting for the fish. So it can be trial and error, and there are days when the only way to get a bite is to use super soft, so it's almost dripping off the hook, but it just gets to the bottom, so it's just something the fish can turn up and just slurp up and you get a sail away bite and everything's gone to plan. So let's summarise today. Get a paste. It doesn't have to say paste on the packet. Get a very fine ground bait. You can use these, there's lots out there. Go into the shop, there'll be loads of opinions on what you should or shouldn't use. I always say measure it when you're making it, so put a full tub in your pot and then about 80% of the same volume of water. I like a spoon, it just saves mess and you can get in the corners of your tub. I would then leave it a minimum of probably 15 minutes. Quite often I'll mix this on the morning, say 10 o'clock, and I'm probably going to start fishing at 12, and it'll just sit in my bag and it's still perfect to work on when you get there. I don't tend to put it in the fridge, but it can stay in the fridge. I've tried freezing it in a bag, that it went very wet and that didn't really work, but overnight in the fridge will work. But it's so quick to make that you can do it on the bank, so you don't need to make tons. Don't make an absolute tub full, because even what I've got there will do a couple of hours fishing. You don't tend to feed any individual bits, you just tend to fish it on the hook, and I'll talk in the next one about feeding as well. Always have some water on your side tray and work one end with softer, one end with firmer, and on the individual day find out what it is. The best conditions are when they want a medium sized piece and a medium consistency, because you can do that really quickly and really routine as you're getting ready to bait up. That's part 2 done. Any comments, questions, please put below. If you want to like and subscribe, that's great. Obviously, if you subscribe, then you'll get notified about the next 4 videos on the paste series that I'm doing. I expect the next one will probably be out in 3 or 4 days, and then the final, some of the other ones will just be down to editing. There isn't, thankfully for you, too much of sitting watching me talk. I've got over 1,800 subscribers, and I'd just like to give a shout out to my hairdresser John, who isn't an angler, but we were discussing technology and using iMovie, which he'd use, which I use to make my videos, and he said I'd have a look at my channel. I then went in the next time and he said he's seen loads of the videos and he thinks they're fantastic. I didn't actually think anybody who's a non-angler would watch any of these videos, but if you're out there, you're very welcome. Until next time, tight lines.